Hi, this is Len. Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles. Today is Friday, May 29th. I'm at Ocean Park, Maine, looking out at a nice sea. There's kind of moderate surf, high tide, and the last couple of days we had the windows open in the cottage for the first time. It's been such a chilly spring that we were glad to have heat in this cottage, but the breezes are coming in, and I love how they move the lace curtains here in the bedroom where I'm talking to you from. This week's interview is with Alexandra Woodworth, who has two interesting jobs related to books at Amazon, and she has a lot to say about literature in the time of coronavirus. Hope you'll enjoy that conversation that I recorded yesterday on Thursday. In news, we're going to talk about an Alexa device that is being discontinued and what that shows about how Amazon's strategy with Alexa devices unfolds. I've got a tech tip about choosing an e-reader for someone who is visually impaired, and also some OverDrive tips and some comments. So let's get started. One of the pleasures of doing this show for as long as I've done it is that I get to see products come and go and look back at them to figure out what we can maybe learn about Amazon and just the pace of technology. And that's the case with a device I remember when it first came out in April of 2017. It's called the Echo Look. And it was an odd one because it had no screen. It had a camera, and that freaked a lot of people out. And its purpose was to help you dress well. You could pick two outfits and have the Echo Look take pictures of both, and then using AI algorithms and I think a few humans, it would say, well, actually, you look better in the green shirt than the orange shirt. And I remember those two colors because that's the one that I tried it for, and the Echo Look agreed with Darlene that the orange shirt was really not my best look. So that's about the only time I tried it, and it was fun to imagine whether it was ever really going to take off. Well, in an article by Brett Kinsella at voicebot.ai, we find out that the Echo Look is going to be discontinued, and beginning July 24th, the Echo Look, the device itself, and its app will no longer function. Brett said that there was an email sent out to people. I don't think I got it, so I don't know why I didn't get the email. But the email said, when we introduced Echo Look 3 years ago, our goal was to train Alexa to become a style assistant as a novel way to apply AI and machine learning to fashion. With the help of our customers, we evolved the service, enabling Alexa to give outfit advice and offer style recommendations. We've since moved Style by Alexa features into the Amazon Shopping app and to Alexa-enabled devices, making them even more convenient and available to more customers. The way it's going to work now is that we still will be able to get style advice from Alexa. I'm not sure I'm going to be needing that much of it, but you just get it through the Amazon Shopping app and also Alexa devices like the Echo Show. Now, I went into the Amazon app on my iPhone just now to check this, and it is up and running now. If you open the app and then you go to the three-line hamburger icon on the upper left, you then go to Programs and Features, and then see All Programs, and then you'll see Style by Alexa. And at that point, you have a few things you can do. You can ask, what should I wear? How do I look? And outfit compare. I started into it, and it looks like it's just going to take advantage of the camera and do all the things that the hardware device itself was going to do, but now you can just do it on your iPhone. And to do it with the Echo Show, you'd simply say, Alexa, what should I wear? Brett Kinsella writes, the Echo Look may be no more, but Amazon's ambition to provide fashion advice lives on to help consumers and maybe lead to a few incremental clothing sales. I like what he concluded the article with some lessons about strategy, and he wrote, Amazon thinks about devices as a means of providing services. If the device isn't leading to more use of services, or if the service can be delivered as effectively through another device that provides other benefits, then it follows that the original device can be eliminated or replaced. Amazon did the former with the portable smart speaker, the Echo Tap, when it eliminated the product outright from its Echo lineup, while the Echo Spot was simply replaced by the Echo Show 5. Now, actually, I didn't know that the Echo Tap had been discontinued. I kind of liked that one. It was the one where you didn't have to have it plugged into power. You could put it on a charger stand, and then you could bring it out on the porch. We used it up here last summer, so I've still got one. But that one apparently has been discontinued. And then the Echo Spot was the little round Echo Show-like device, and they've discontinued that, and then they put an Echo Show 5 in. So you can see them tweaking the lineup here, and noting that each year there are new experiments with Echo. There was quite a lineup of them when I was in Seattle last fall. The Echo Loop, I think that was a ring. I don't think I've seen that yet. I signed up for it, I hope to. And Echo Airbuds, Alexa Airbuds. So trying out different devices to see which ones really expand the Alexa platform or develop more use of it. And then Amazon's pretty harsh with its new creations, and if these things don't work out, they just simply discontinue them, which is what happened with the Echo Look. I think I got my Echo Look because it was by invitation only. I think Garrett Riley got an invitation and then made his available to me, so that was much appreciated and gave me a chance to be one of the few people now that will ever remember actually having an Echo Look in my bedroom. It didn't bother me at all. The first tech tip comes from an email that I received from listener Robert Shelton in Tauranga, New Zealand. I love getting emails from people that are from all over the world. And this one starts, "Hi from New Zealand. My mom is visually impaired but can read large print. She has been a prolific reader for the last 85 years. She's now 91 and really misses reading. I'd like to buy her an e-reader and wanted your advice on which one would be best for her. Are any of them set up well for large print, or do any of them have an option to read the text too? Are any newspapers available on them? Thanks for your help. Best regards, Robert Shelton." I gave some thought to this, and I sent a reply to Robert to see if I could help him think this through. As I was imagining helping his mother, the first decision was, would he want to go with an e-ink device, which would be the basic Kindle, the Paperwhite, or the Oasis, or would he want to go to one of the tablets, the Fire 7-inch, 8-inch, or 10-inch? And when I thought of the Kindles, the e-ink Kindles, I think that one advantage, especially for perhaps an older person, would be the simplicity. It's just for reading books. It's not about Twitter and browsing and email and all the rest of the stuff, which I think for some people, I know my dad, he loves just reading his Kindle app on his iPhone, and he's not really eager to be learning one more thing that the device can do. And so a Fire tablet, I think, could be a little bit overwhelming. Perhaps not, but that's one thing to consider. So the simplicity of the e-ink devices would be one thing. A negative would be the size of the screen, because the basic Kindle and the Paperwhite both have a 6-inch diagonal screen. And then if you go up to the Oasis, the one I use, you get a 7-inch, so it's slightly larger. And it really that really depends on how impaired someone is visually. If they're having to have really huge fonts where there's just a couple of words on a line on one of these small screens, you'd have to be making so many page turns it might be tedious. And that's why I'll get to the next possibilities with the Fire. In passing, there is text-to-speech available with Bluetooth on all of the Kindle devices, so you can't plug in a wire to earbuds the way we could with earlier Kindles, but the Bluetooth connection's pretty rock solid. It'd take a little to get it set up, but once it was set up with a speaker or a headset, there would be that option. So when you get to the Fire devices, I think the 7-inch might be kind of small. The 8-inch is an interesting size. It would be just slightly larger screen than the Oasis, and it was just updated. The Fire HD 8 is now $90, and it's faster. I think it's shipping next week, so it's just coming out. But then if really the size of the font was going to be very large, it might be that the Fire HD 10 would be the best, because that's got the largest screen, and it's $149 by comparison. If an iPad, which you might buy for a similar reason, you could get a Kindle app on an iPad, you'd pay $329 for the iPad compared to $149 for the Fire HD 10. I think the Fire HD 10 would also be the most pleasing to read newspapers on, because you get the whole screen and you can kind of drill down into articles. The HD 8 is, if you think about the choice between an Oasis, which has got the ink screen, the simplicity, that's $250, and the new HD 8 tablet is only $90. So it's a real savings. But it would give you a larger screen, and color is pretty nice. I mean, if you can stand the complexity of it, I find it pleasant to read on a Fire. I'm also reading on my iPad, the Kindle app, and when I tap on something from a book that has a link, instantly it goes. The speed of it's very impressive, much faster than the e-ink. So interesting question, and I think that Robert said that I'm not sure exactly what he settled on, but it'd be interesting to hear, and also to hear what his mother thinks of it, because, boy, I just can't think of anything more satisfying than to think of somebody who has been a reader all their life and, is facing some disabilities or impairment of vision, and to find a device that can bring reading back. That's pretty wonderful. So I hope what I had to offer was helpful. Second tech tip comes from John Aga, and he sent a couple of tips about borrowing books from your public library with OverDrive. He wrote this a while ago, so it's not brand new, but OverDrive has a fairly new feature, he writes, and that's the ability to suspend a hold if you reach number 1 for checking out the next copy of the book. You might be in the middle of another book. Putting a suspend hold keeps you at the number 1 position until you're ready for your next read. That's interesting. Robert says there are also changes in the renewal process for a book that you get through OverDrive at your library. You can designate a book you checked out for renewal up to 3 days before you're supposed to check out of the book. Now, this is only if the book is not on a hold, but if you've got 3 days before, you're going to have to turn the book in, or it's going to be taken off your Kindle. In that situation, you would be able to extend the hold and have, I don't know, maybe another 21 days to read it. So that's interesting. There were some other new features, and I'll have a link in the show notes for that. Time now for the interview. A 2008 graduate of Middlebury College, Alexandra Woodworth, worked for 2 years at the venerable publisher Henry Holt & Company, and then joined Amazon Publishing for 5 years as a public relations specialist and publicity lead at Amazon Publishing. She currently holds 2 positions at Amazon, one as senior editor for Amazon Books Editorial. That's the team that chooses the best of the year, best of the month lists of books for readers, and the other is manager of the Amazon Literary Partnership. The partnership this week announced more than $1 million in grants to 66 literary organizations. I reached Alexandra yesterday, May 28th, in Connecticut, where she and her fiancé have relocated from New York City since the pandemic hit. I began by asking her to talk about why Amazon Literary Partnership was created and how it has evolved since then.
Yeah, so in 2009, Amazon Literary Partnership sort of began, and it happened sort of on the heels of Amazon beginning Kindle Direct Publishing and then Amazon Publishing, and so then Amazon, I think, felt like there's an opportunity to do even more for writers. They became a publisher in some ways overnight, and so I think it made sense then to also begin to support organizations that support writers that we know are so vital to the mechanisms of sharing their work, of actually having time to write work in residencies or in writing centers, whether it's, being published by literary magazines. So in 2009, Amazon Literary Partnership began giving out grants, and over the years, it's become a much more sort of sophisticated, I would say, organization. And that a few years ago, we've got an actual application process that's pretty streamlined that I think, at least I've heard from organizations, that is pretty simple. We have an annual grant review and then granting process. And then we ask for annual sort of updates from our organizations that we support. And so I think over the years, we're just helping and supporting more organizations.
It was almost a sense that as Amazon was getting into publishing and the Kindle was going, you were kind of feeding the very early part of the whole literary system by supporting organizations and writers. Was that kind of the genesis of realizing that Amazon was now going to be in publishing, and therefore there was an opportunity and a responsibility to make sure the very start of the whole ecosystem was being supported?
Absolutely. I think that we just felt like we were becoming part of the publishing industry as a publisher ourselves in a traditional way and in a more non-traditional way. And so I think that there was a great opportunity for us to make an even larger impact on writers' lives and the broader literary and publishing community. And I think that we know how much it takes and how much support writers need to actually carve out the time to write, or to find funding to have the time to write, or to teach so that they can actually write. There's so many different organizations that help writers actually do what it is that they want to do. And then importantly, so many different institutions that then allow writers to share their work. So different lecture series or different writing centers are so important to the whole sort of system of writing. And I think from an Amazon Literary Partnership perspective, our granting process is very much thinking about, the entire evolution of a writer's career. It's not just the beginning. It's not just helping them when they're writing a book. It's how do you help them share their work and get to a place where they can get a publishing deal or decide to write a book, and then how do they share that with their local community and perhaps even broader. So I think Amazon Literary Partnership is a really wonderful mechanism for us to support writers at all different stages of their careers, which is something that I'm really proud to be a part of.
Yes. And the other thing that seemed like the diversity focus, which is very strong now, where I can tell you're reaching out to organizations and ways to support writers who not only, it's tough to be a writer, but it's even harder to be a writer from kind of a marginalized community of one sort or another. What do you see as sort of the history of when that became a real important focus as it is now?
Sure. I mean, I think it's always been an important focus for Amazon Literary Partnership. I think some of our earliest grant recipients were Lambda Literary, Asian American Writers Workshop, different translation programs like Open Letter Press and Center for the Art of Translation. So I think that, from its inception, we recognized the need for our grants to be supporting organizations that reflect the world that we live in and the writers that are writing in it. So I think over the years, we've absolutely included a diversity, equity, and inclusion focus into our mission. And I think over the past couple of years, we've really codified that and made it part of our mission. And I think that's so important. I mean, so many organizations now, whether they're only focused on diverse writers or if it's part of their programming, I think it's really important that we're supporting organizations that are looking to expand the voices of writers that are in existence today. We know that publishing has at times not been they've been more exclusionary. And so I think with all of these writing programs that are new or have been around for decades, that have a very real focus and a strong desire to help different writers who haven't necessarily been able to share their work before, or, Lambda Literary always talks about their writing workshop residencies and their fellowship program, and that LGBTQ writers come into a room and they can just be there together and dive directly into the work. They don't have to feel like they're presenting themselves in a certain way or their identity is being questioned. And so I think it's that creating that space is so important. So we're really thrilled to support so many different organizations that are doing such a terrific job supporting writers.
And I think it makes sense too, because I think, from Jeff Bezos on down, the idea that the Kindle was an initiative to help books survive in all the media competition, and that if the world is a more literate place, that's a good thing. And so the point, from the point of view of readers, the Kindle and everything that the Kindle has made possible has been wonderful. And that diversity piece, it's almost as if it's enriching the product, the category of books, by bringing in new voices and bringing in things that you might not get exposed to in competing media. It's
absolutely, it's
giving it an edge, which I think helps books in general.
Absolutely. I think that's so true.
Well, let's talk about 2020. This week,
Sure.
There was an announcement. It's over $1 million in grants to 66 organizations. Has that been kind of the scale of recent years, or what's that sort of top line number look like compared to past years?
Yeah, it's similar to what we've provided the past couple of years, which is just, we're thrilled to work with so many different organizations every year. We grant grants to new organizations that we haven't funded before, and so that's always a really exciting and interesting part of the process. For this year, the grant timeline sort of was odd with COVID, but we were able to, alert grant recipients earlier than we typically do, and we were able to get grant funding out quickly. And then we were also, I think at Amazon, we felt like we wanted to continue to support the organizations that support writers during this crisis, but then we also wanted to figure out a way to help writers directly. So we joined a coalition of arts organizations to create a $10 million fund called Artist Relief, that gives $5,000 grants to artists of all different kinds, and the donation that we gave is earmarked explicitly for writers. And then we also contributed to PEN America's Writers Emergency Fund, which has been in existence for a long time, and they were able to quickly pivot to COVID-related needs of writers. So we just feel really strongly that writing is so important right now. All of these organizations that support writers and connect them with their readers are vital, and so we wanted to, do the best that we can to support them and the amazing work that they're doing, even though it may look different than what they had originally planned for the year.
Right. Well, where did COVID occur on your kind of regular cycle? Did you make your final decisions in January before it was really clear what we were about to get hit with, or what was the timeline?
Sure. So our application process is from mid-October through mid-January, and then we sort of begin to look at all of the different organizations. Soon after that, we typically announce, in May, and so it was sort of right at the time of COVID, and so we felt like we didn't want to make organizations reapply. We understood that their applications for the different programs they were asking funding for might not come to fruition, but we felt like, we wanted to support organizations whose mission we believe in, and so we, tried to take that into account as we were reading through the grant applications, which I just have to say it's inspiring, the work that all of these organizations do across the country, and whether it's at a national level or a really local one, the care and the passion of all of these different organizations and the expertise of how they're reaching their writers and how they're sharing it with the broader community it's so cool. It's really quite amazing. So we're thrilled that we were able to, get these grants out the door to 66 wonderful organizations across the country.
Yeah. I served on an NEA literary panel a long time ago, and the volume of grant requests that came in was pretty daunting. At this point in the history of ALP, are you looking at like 3 requests for every one that you can end up doing, or what's sort of the scale of the tsunami of requests that you're getting?
Yeah, I mean, I think every year it grows, and there are really worthy organizations that are applying for funding, and so it's hard to go through the applications while knowing that you can't provide funding for everyone. So it's definitely a challenge for us. I think, we've been around for more than 10 years now too, so word is certainly out. So I think that then contributes to the amount of applications we get every year, which is, we're thrilled that people view us, and people, are applying for funding. And I think what it shows too is just that the literary scene and the organizations across this country are so vital. There's so many of them. They're so, just doing really interesting things that, again, we're just proud to fund and to be part of.
Well, let's dig into some of the specifics. There's one, Deep Vellum Publishing. That's a nice name. What do they do? They received a grant.
They did, and they received a grant. This is the first year that we provided a grant to Deep Vellum Publishing, and so they're out of Dallas. I think they're the only publisher in Dallas, and they focus on works in translation. So their hope is to illuminate both the diversity and the universality of the human experience, which is. It's wonderful. I think works in translation are so important. So we're happy to fund them.
So they're translating from other languages into English, kind of the way Amazon Crossing does?
Yeah, exactly. And so they have a publication series called Woman in the World and Conversation Through Literature. And so they'll be publishing 8 books and creating events around them. And that's what they received a grant for. So we're excited to be working with them and to help them, get these books out into the hands of readers and to see what kind of, I think they were certainly planning to do in-person events. And so it'll be interesting to see the different kinds of things that they'll do, perhaps digitally or perhaps, from 6 feet away. We'll just have to see. But I think, publishers right now, the work that they publish will last forever. And so I think we're thrilled to have given a grant to them this year.
How about City of Asylum, Pittsburgh?
It's another super cool organization in Pennsylvania, and they provide a sanctuary to endangered literary writers. So they have, I think it's 4 residencies at a time, and they're 2 years long, and they bring in writers that are endangered, and they give them housing. They provide a space for them to write. There are free readings. They support their families. It's just such a cool and important, I think, organization that really looks at the whole of a person's life for those 2 years and tries to,
what kind of danger? Like immigration status danger?
All sorts of different stuff. Or, from war-torn countries, just, people that are being persecuted for their writing. I mean, I think there's so many, unfortunately, there are so many different ways that writers can be endangered, and I think this is just such a cool program where these writers then become embedded in this community in Pittsburgh, and how then their work impacts those around them. It's really cool. So we're thrilled to work with them this year. There's a City of Asylum in Nevada that we were aware of, and this is the first time that we're giving City of Asylum in Pittsburgh a grant.
How about the Center for Africa?
Another wonderful organization based in Harlem. It was part of the Museum of Africa that has since turned into this center that is hoping to raise the profile of contemporary African authors and books. So they put on readings. There's programming towards directed towards kids, teens, adults. They're hosting readings, workshops, discussions in their beautiful new space that I was able to visit, 6 months ago, something right now. And the space is just absolutely beautiful. And, what a gift to provide an arena to share that work and then to do work in that space. So we're excited to work with them this year.
Yeah. LitNet, is that a digital initiative of some kind?
Yeah, so LitNet actually is a national coalition dedicated to increasing the capacity of America's literary arts nonprofits. And so it's sort of a consortium of groups across the country, I think more than 50 of them. So you can think of festivals, publishers, translators, writing centers, teaching artists, writers in schools, and they're just doing the vital work on behalf of the nonprofit industry. And I think they've been around for a long time, and they're sort of being resurrected right now. And I think especially during this time of coronavirus, it's so important that there is a leader in the field for literary organizations. And LitNet has an incredible collective of people behind it. And so many organizations that we provide grants to are part of it. And so we just felt like what a great opportunity to support this organization that is, mouthpiece is an inelegant word, but, a champion for literary organizations across the country.
Exactly. Well, your other role, senior editor, Amazon Books Editorial, I've had some contact with that team over the years, but what's your, how do you explain what that is when somebody finds out that that's one of the things you do at Amazon?
Some people don't realize that there is a group of editors at Amazon who are looking at all of the books that are publishing, reading them, interviewing authors, writing about books, picking the best books of the month and the best books of the year so far, and then the best books of the year, in hopes of just helping customers discover great books. So I have the great privilege of, writing about books. I get to interview authors, and again, just to help customers discover great books on the Amazon Book Review.
Has the team come up with any COVID-19 related lists, or has your work changed in recent months in response to the pandemic?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think in some ways our job hasn't changed at all. We've always tried to help customers discover great books. And so in that way it hasn't changed. But on the other hand, we're absolutely creating content that will resonate with readers today. So we have, on the Amazon Book Review, we have some practical posts like books to help you build emotional resilience. There's a roundup of books to help you parent during the pandemic. There's an article on books on working remotely. There's a fun one on, how to... in the beginning, I remember talking to so many different people, and everyone was saying that I'm reorganizing my bookshelves. I'm going through them. So we asked a bunch of authors, best-selling ones from Elizabeth Gilbert to ones that have books coming out like Britt Bennett. How do you organize your bookshelf? Which was a really sort of fun piece. And then we also do ones like, 5 novels that around office life, and that capture sort of the hilarity of it all. Or I think a lot of people are missing sports right now. So we've got a roundup of sports books that will, jog your memory of competition. So, I think we're absolutely trying to, put together collections of books that will help people in this moment where we're sort of distanced from one another and inside and not able to do all the activities. So what a better time than to sit down and read a great book. I've
noticed in my own habits here since we've been up in Maine, I'm not driving as much, and I'm not listening to podcasts as much, which is sort of sad since I have a podcast. But do you have any anecdotal evidence or other statistics that show that people in the last 2.5 months are actually reading more books, that this is a time where the book is making kind of a comeback or strengthening its role among the different options we have for spending our time when we're quarantined?
It's a great question. I don't have any data around it, but I mean, I can speak for myself and those around me that I think we're all turning to books more than ever. And it's a time to dive in, I think, to the bigger books that you had always sort of put aside, or read the classics that you didn't understand when you were reading in high school, or the history books that you feel like I want to really understand whatever it is, or like Moby Dick, right?
I think
I think it for me anyway, it's books have provided such wonderful solace in this time. So I have to believe that people are going back to books, or not going back, but reading more than ever. And of course, it's the summertime, so summer reading, and they're, big blockbuster commercial page turners that are out right now. So I imagine that, there's so many books, so many great books coming out soon that I hope people will be turning the pages on their Kindle or physically.
Right. Well, you've had an interesting trajectory through Amazon so far, because you had the 5 years working at Amazon Publishing, and then shifted over to Amazon Books and ALP. Do you have some sense of the benefit of those 5 years with Amazon Publishing and how it informs your work with Amazon Books Editorial and the ALP? What's sort of the benefits of the path that you've taken so far?
Sure. I mean, I think we all probably construct narratives of our paths, and it's easier to look in the rear view mirror and see what it is. But I think, for me, it's a pretty, in some ways, a pretty straight one. I think when I was at Amazon Publishing and before I was at Henry Holt, I was a book publicist. And so I got to spend my days talking to media about writers' books and how great they are and how important they are. And I always felt like it was such an honor to represent their work in an effort to find the, widest audience for them that was possible. And so that's something that I just loved doing. And I'm able to do that now in a slightly different way for the Amazon Book Review. I can share what we think are the best books of the month or the best books of the year so far. And with Amazon Literary Partnership, I feel like through my experience in the publishing industry, and especially as a publicist who works just so closely with writers, that I understand and realize the importance of all of these different organizations that, give writers their break, whether that's an initial going to a reading at the Center for Fiction and realizing, oh, this is so interesting, this is something for me, and then maybe getting a residency at Hedgebrook and spending weeks in a cabin writing, and then being able to actually publish their work through a literary magazine or a publisher. So I guess I feel like I understand intimately how important these organizations are in supporting writers on their publishing path. That it's just I understand and I get it, and so I get so excited that we can help writers through these different organizations. And while I was at Amazon Publishing, I was lucky enough to be a reader for the Amazon Books editorial team. So, I don't know, I think probably for the past 6 years or so, I read for them. And then for Amazon Literary Partnership as well, I, would work on the public relations for it, but then also was lucky enough to be a part of the internal committee that reviews the applications for a few years. So for the job, both parts of my job that I have now, I had the experience actually in the trenches with them before actually officially joining the teams, which I'm really grateful for. And I think that's something that is pretty cool about Amazon, is the ability to sort of raise your hand for what you're interested in, and whether you're a volunteer or just going after what you want. I feel like I've been able to continue to support and champion writers in all of these different roles that I have, which for me it's so rewarding. It's so rewarding.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, you have a unique viewpoint, I would think, on having a sense of what sort of literature might be coming out of the pandemic experience, because you're in touch with writing organizations and then publishing and the book team. And I heard somebody speak, I don't know if it was Cheryl Strayed's podcast, or somebody was saying that the role of a writer in this kind of historic crisis is simply to gather material, because they won't know. You can't sit down in the midst of a pandemic and write the Great American Pandemic novel, because you don't have any idea really what we're dealing with. I wonder if, given all the changes in publishing, a lot of them as a result of Amazon's innovations, we'll see the great pandemic novel or the really significant literature coming out of this sooner than things came out of the Great Depression or other kind of historic moments. But I could just sort of sense that 10 years from now, we'll be reading about this time with the help of really great writers. And if, from what you see now and what you're hearing now, you have any sense of the shape of that, or where it's going to come from, or what kinds of things we really might benefit from by writers grappling with this.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if it was Cheryl Strayed, if we're talking about the same thing, or if it was another writer that was just sort of, that shared the same sentiment. Like, now is a time to sort of, to write in your journal to capture the emotions that you're feeling. But it's not necessarily time to dive in and write about your surroundings right now. Yeah. But I think people certainly are. I mean, a book called The Wuhan Diary, published last week, which was one of China's best-selling writers, recorded her thoughts, her feelings of the sort of shutdown in Wuhan every day. And so she initially, I think, had posted them online, and, each subsequent day, the last one would be taken down and she'd post a new one. And so this book sort of chronicles her feelings on it. And I think, it's from the domestic of making coffee and cooking for yourself all the time to, the rage of it and her experience there. So I'm excited to see what kind of work comes out of this. But I think, I agree that there are, this is a very Amazonian word, but there are mechanisms in place for the work to reach readers even more quickly today than, certainly the Great Depression. But I think every year, we just see things more quickly. But I also think, I think both fiction and nonfiction, for some writers, it takes a long time to formulate the story, whether it's true or made up. And so I think often really good ones, it takes a little bit of time to come out. But we'll see. It's also interesting just to think about, I don't know what you're reading these days, but I feel like some people, are gravitating towards nonfiction in a way that they normally don't during this time, or vice versa. And it's so interesting, I think, to think about different readers and what they need right now. Are they looking for comfort? Are you looking for a laugh? Are you looking for an understanding of the Spanish flu? Whatever it is. There's so much good information in fiction and nonfiction in books.
Do you see any signs from some of the organizations you're working with that this is going to be a time when people turn more to poetry than they have in, quote, normal times?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, Jennifer Banka, who runs the Academy of American Poets, who's so wonderful. We've supported Poem a Day, their initiative that publishes a poem every day. And she shared that the signups for it and the email newsletter have doubled since the COVID outbreak. So I think that would tell you very much so that people are turning to the expressions of poetry for comfort or for entertainment. I think there's something about sort of the staccato prose and the brevity of it, I think, that can be really powerful right now. And perhaps since, we're not all commuting, that there's a little bit more time in the morning to establish a routine. And perhaps Poem a Day it is part of more people's morning routine now, it's terrific. It's so wonderful. I think poetry over the years too has certainly expanded. 2 years ago, we partnered actually with the Academy of American Poets on a sort of re-granting fund. So we established the Poetry Fund with them. And last year and this year, we were able to provide funding, I think this year is to 17 different poetry organizations across the country. And so they convened a panel that included, a Pulitzer Prize winner, a poet laureate, a publisher of poetry, and they were able to lend their expertise in reviewing the grant applications for our poetry fund this year, which we're so incredibly grateful for.
Wow. That's you're encouraging and your enthusiasm for what's going on out there in the writing community, and it's great that Amazon's able to support it. So I think when I think about one of the books I found myself drawn to was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning and The Baron in the Trees, Italo Calvino.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
they're books that
one.
Yeah, and I mean, these are books I've read before, and because of all the questions about what's important and what's going on, that there's sort of a gravitational pull toward books that have helped me wrestle with the big questions in the past. But I mean, as lovers of books, I think you and I can be sure that they're going to point the way through this and beyond, probably.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, they always do. So I think now more than ever, I will, follow the lead and the sentences of the writers that I love and, we'll soon discover.
Yeah, fantastic. I have been speaking with Alexandra Woodworth, manager of Amazon Literary Partnership and senior editor for Amazon Books Editorial. Thanks very much, Al.
Thank you so much, Len.
I'd like to close this week with a couple of your comments. Al Dimmitt wrote, "Good morning, Len. I wanted to respond to the listener who asked about the Kobo as a means of supporting his independent bookseller. I have been using 2 apps to read ebooks and listen in the audio format. MyMustReads.com allows ebook purchases that benefit my indie. I use primarily the iOS app, although I've also sideloaded the Android app on my Kindle Fire. The reading experience is very adequate, although not as robust as the Kindle. Location syncing across devices is lacking, as is the highlighting and notation ability. Scrolling, which I've come to appreciate in the Kindle app, doesn't seem to be an option. Likewise, Libro.fm provides the ability to purchase audiobooks with the indie getting credit. The experience is virtually identical to the Audible app. In both cases, the pricing is comparable or identical to the Amazon products. Both seem to have an extensive list of participating bookstores. I've been more conscientious in recent weeks about these options since their traditional business has obviously suffered. Thanks, Len. Hope you're well, Al Dimmitt." Thanks, Al. That's so mymustreads.com, that's ebook purchases, and then Libro.fm, that's audiobooks. I'll have links to those in the show notes. And I like the idea that those are ways that can still benefit your favorite independent bookstore, like the Tattered Cover in Denver, which is one of my favorites, and the Harvard Bookstore in Harvard Square, when you're buying your digital content. Nadine from North Carolina wrote, I liked the interview with Darlene and the, quote, silent pup. I think Sophie had made a little noise there. I think I just heard her, too. I don't know if you could hear her from downstairs. Nadine writes, in response to a color e-reader, I think we are starting to defeat the purpose of an e-reader. It is for intense, serious readers who don't want the distractions that come with reading on an iPad or computer. I feel colorful pages would be distracting. If one wants color, why not simply put the Kindle app on their computer and enjoy color reading experience? I find the black and white reading experience calming and engaging. I use my imagination to picture what the author is describing with such details. She also said she agreed with Darlene that when you're married as long as we are, the being together doesn't really seem that much different. I was saying, oh, look at all the things we've learned, and Nadine agrees with Darlene on that one. Thanks, Nadine. Yeah, I agree with you on the issue of color e-ink. It's getting a lot of coverage, mainly from good e-reader. But I don't see the point. But I'm ready to have my mind changed. There's something I've seen Jeff Bezos say, that he always looks for people who are right more than other people, which seems like kind of an impossible standard if you're going to just hire people who are always right. But then he says, I've discovered that people who are right more than other people change their minds a lot. And there's kind of a Zen simplicity to that notion. So yeah, if you're not afraid to change your mind, you probably have a better chance of being right more often than somebody who sticks to their opinions, sometimes, as I do, very fiercely. Next week's guest is going to be David Pepper. He's the author of The Voter File. That's a novel that will be released on June 2nd by Penguin. It's available for pre-order on Kindle for $13.99, 431-page read. It features a blurb from former President Bill Clinton, who says, Pepper comes through again with this clever tale of how cyber sabotage of elections, coupled with highly concentrated ownership of traditional media operations, can undermine American democracy. And I'm about 60% through it. It's a political thriller. It features a rogue reporter, Jack Sharp, who investigates an election meddling scheme of epic proportions. It's pretty well plotted. I mean, it's a good read, and it's clearly carrying a message about the vulnerability of elections. The author earned an undergraduate and law degree from Yale and has been a law clerk for a U.S. Court of Appeals judge, and also served an elected office in Ohio. This is Len Edgerly for the Kindle Chronicles from Ocean Park, Maine. I really appreciate your taking the time to listen to my show. Have a great day. Bye.